A silent column of clay can warm a room longer than a modern electric heater ever could, and it does it without wires, fans, or constant power. That sounds impossible. It isn't, and once you understand how this old heating tower works, you start to see just how much practical wisdom we've quietly left behind. This isn't a gimmick or a romantic myth. Variations of this clay heating tower kept homes alive through brutal winters long before electricity became common. In parts of Europe, Asia and North Africa, families depended on tall, masonry-based heaters that stored heat like a battery and released it slowly for hours, sometimes an entire day, after the fire went out. The clever part isn't the fire. It's what happens after the flames are gone. Here's the interesting part. Most heaters fail, not because they don't make enough heat, but because they lose it too fast. Electric heaters blast warmth into the air escapes, and the cycle never ends. The rustic clay heating tower flips that logic completely. It captures heat, locks it inside dense material, and then leaks it back into the room at a steady, controlled pace. No noise, no spikes, no wasted energy. At its core, the clay heating tower is a vertical thermal mass heater. Think of it as a tall column built from clay bricks, stone, or packed earth, with internal flues that guide hot exhaust gases upward before they exit. A small fire burns at the base, often using very little wood. As the hot gases snake through the internal channels, the clay absorbs that heat instead of letting it rush straight out the chimney. By the time smoke finally exits, most of the usable heat is already trapped inside the structure. The tower itself becomes the heater. Hours later, long after the fire has burned down to ash, the clay continues radiating warmth into the space. Not hot blasts, not dry air, just a deep, even heat that feels almost alive. This principle shows up in Russian masonry stoves, German tile stoves, Korean ondel systems, and North African clay hearths. Different cultures, same physics. Heat storage beats heat production every time. Electric heaters are designed for convenience, not efficiency. They convert electricity directly into heat, but they don't store it. The moment you switch them off, the warmth disappears. Worse, they rely on constant airflow and convection, which dries out rooms and creates uneven temperature zones. So, the clay heating tower works on radiant heat. It warms walls, floors, furniture, and bodies directly. That means, the room stays comfortable even at lower air temperatures. People using masonry heaters often report feeling warm at temperatures that would, honestly, feel cold with forced air systems. And that's not just imagination, that's physics. Another overlooked advantage is endurance. A single short burn can provide warmth for 12 to 24 hours, depending on the tower's mass. Electric heaters demand continuous power. But the clay tower, it demands patience and planning. In survival terms, that's a massive upgrade. Before centralized heating, fuel was precious. Wood had to be cut, dried, and carried. Coal had to be hauled by hand. Inefficient fires weren't just wasteful, they were dangerous. That pressure, you see, forced people to innovate. By the 18th and 19th centuries, refined clay and masonry heaters had become status symbols in colder regions. Not because they were fancy, but because they worked. Some European designs were so efficient they used 1/10 the wood of an open fireplace. Early 20th century rural homes relied on them well into the age of electricity, especially where power was unreliable or expensive. These weren't survival tools for emergencies. They were, everyday technology optimized over generations. When electricity arrived, speed replaced wisdom. We traded endurance for instant heat and, never looked back. The real magic happens inside the tower. Hot gases don't take a straight path. Instead, they're forced to travel through narrow, winding channels that maximize contact with the clay walls. Every turn strips more heat from the exhaust, and by the time those gases exit, they're often cool enough to touch safely near the chimney. The height of the tower matters. Taller structures create stronger draft while increasing surface area for heat storage. Clay matters too. Dense, unfired or lightly fired clay absorbs and releases heat slowly, unlike metal, which heats and cools rapidly. This is why the tower keeps working long after the fire ends. You're not heating air, you're charging a thermal battery. Now, this is where things get clever. Because the fire burns hot and fast, combustion is cleaner. Less smoke, fewer particulates. That means better indoor air quality compared to smouldering stoves or open hearths. It's ancient technology solving a very modern problem. In a grid-down scenario, electric heaters are dead weight. Fuel-powered metal stoves work, but they burn through resources quickly. A clay heating tower stretches limited fuel farther than almost any other option. It also pairs well with, low-quality biomass. Twigs, agricultural waste, even small scraps can generate meaningful heat when used efficiently. You don't need constant feeding. One controlled burn does the job. From a resilience perspective, the tower offers stability. No moving parts. No electronics. No dependency on supply chains. Once built, it lasts decades with minimal maintenance. Cracks can be patched with the same earth it was made from. Try repairing an electric heater without spare parts. Even in modern homes, people rediscovering masonry heaters often use them as the primary heat source, with electric systems as backup. That alone should make you pause. We've been trained to think heat equals power consumption. More watts, more warmth. The clay heating tower exposes how flawed that thinking is. Comfort isn't about how fast heat is produced. It's about how well it's managed. Radiant heat changes how a space feels. It reduces drafts. It evens out cold spots. It creates a sense of calm instead of constant cycling. People sit closer. Rooms feel grounded. There's a reason these heaters often became the heart of the home. And here's the quiet truth. In many climates, a well-designed clay heating tower can outperform electric heaters not just in efficiency, but in quality of life. That's not nostalgia talking. That's lived experience repeated across centuries. We're entering an era where energy reliability can't be taken for granted. Weather extremes, rising costs, fragile grids, old solutions suddenly look very modern. The rustic clay heating tower isn't a fantasy build for hobbyists. It's a proven system that asks us to slow down, think ahead, and work with physics instead of fighting it. That mindset is the real survival lesson. This channel exists to preserve that kind of knowledge, not because the past was perfect, but because it was honest about limits. When resources mattered, people built smarter systems. The clay heating tower is one of the best examples. If this story shifted how you think about heat, energy, or survival, stay with us. Subscribe to Legacy of Survival, like the video, and share it with someone who still thinks electric heaters are the peak of human progress. There's a lot more forgotten wisdom waiting to be uncovered, and you don't want to miss what comes next.